if you're moving toward a specific outcome and you're overly preoccupied with kind of getting there in the way that's acceptable or known, you won't get anywhere new.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Devers, and this is Clever. Today, I'm talking to Cas Holman, who is an acclaimed designer for play, educator, and author of the upcoming book, Playful: How Play Shifts Our Thinking, Inspires Connection, and Sparks Creativity. She's known for designing Rigamajig, a system for interdependent open-ended play, which is now part of New York City's High Line, along with Geemo and other playthings and play environments. She also works with organizations to rethink approaches to team dynamics, creativity, and workplace culture, and has worked with Google, Nike, Disney Imagineering, and Lego Foundation, among others. Cas was featured in an episode of Netflix's Abstract: The Art of Design, and if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to watch it. It's a powerful portrait of Cas and her work, and a compelling endorsement of the power of play. This episode is full of good news. As you'll hear, she makes quite a case for why we all need more play in our lives, why it's a critical leadership tool, and essential for innovation, trust, health, productivity, and of course, joy. So, after listening, I want you to promise me and Cas that you'll make some time to play. Here's Cas.
I'm Cas Holman. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I design for play because I believe that it is incredibly powerful, makes us the best version of the human selves that we are, and it's what I'm drawn to do.
Well, it is a powerful thing to make humans the best versions that they can possibly be. So let's start by unpacking play. I know that you're not talking about playing with prescriptive toys that have a set outcome or a story built into them already. You're kind of talking about a concept of free play. Can you describe that so that we have an accurate working definition as we move forward?
Yeah. Free play is, and this is a definition that was taught to me by a play worker named Penny Wilson. Free play is play which is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated. I could unpack each of those a little bit. So intrinsic motivation describes when you're driven to do something that doesn't necessarily have a reward that's coming from the outside. So right now, in most of our lives, things are extrinsically motivated, meaning you're running fast in order to kind of get a good score, or you're walking in order to get your steps in, or you're studying really hard, not because you're intrinsically motivated by curiosity or by the desire to know more and the excitement of understanding. Rather, the extrinsic motivation is to get a grade, right? Or maybe at work, we work really hard so that we get a promotion, right? The promotion is an extrinsic motivation.
Yes.
Whereas an intrinsic motivation is, I want to do it because I'm curious, because I'm driven, because I'm thirsty for knowledge, or I enjoy doing the thing, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And it's interesting because in play, like video games are extrinsically motivated, right? You want to level up. You play to get to the next level, or you play to get a score, or you play to kind of make your way through the story to get to the next chapter, right?
Yeah.
Whereas free play, you're playing because it feels good and because you're curious and because you want to see what's on the other side of that, river. So you're going to figure out how to rearrange the rocks in order to get across without getting your new shoes wet, right?
Yeah.
And then in that's also kind of the personally directed. There's nobody telling you what to do next. You're kind of figuring out or deciding.
Yes.
Through trial and error, which also means that in free play, you wind up with a really different relationship to failure.
Oh.
And I think that relates a lot to the creative process and the design process in general, because when you're kind of following your nose, it's all exploring. It's all like, what if this, what if that? And none of it's wrong or necessarily even not working, right?
Right. So even if you try a few things that don't help you get across the river because you're curious to see what's on the other side, it's not like you did it wrong because you didn't pass the test. There's nobody grading you on how you're figuring this out.
Yeah, and it's likely that in the process of rearranging the rocks, you realize you've kind of created a waterfall, and then you may forget entirely about getting to the other
Yeah,
side and
right.
just start making a whirlpool or like, whoa, hey, under that rock was a salamander. Can I find more of those? Or, hey, that was a cool sound. What's the difference between a kerplunk and a splash, right?
Right. So even the outcome is self-directed and can change based on your curiosity. Okay. And discovery.
Absolutely. That's free play. It's like you're playing for the sake of play. It feels good. There's flow, you're immersed, and you're kind of like unattached to outcomes because there's no specific goal or judge involved.
So with children, I think that's maybe a little bit more obvious for us all to perceive what that might look like. And even the example you gave is a great one for both children and adults, like moving rocks around to get across a river or discover salamanders or make a waterfall. But I think what strikes me is I don't think adults really are that attuned to their own sense of play anymore. And we tend to think of it as like, I'm going to learn an instrument, but that's very outcome oriented often, or I'm going to play on the local soccer team. But what does adult play really look like?
Yeah. And, I want to say like both of those things, I am such a fan of adults picking up anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Learning an instrument as an adult, you're probably not doing it to become a professional musician. You're probably doing it
right. The ship sailed on that.
Right? Which, as with children, often we're like, oh, you're bad at soccer. Let's stop playing. And the kid might be like, I love it. Why do I have to stop just because I'm not going to, be the star?
Yeah.
Like, can't I keep playing? Like, who cares if I'm bad? But yeah, so in terms of free play, I agree. It's hard for us in part because we're very attached to productivity.
Yes.
Myself included. I do catch myself on occasion being like, what am I even doing? And then I'm like, well, I don't know. And it feels good. So I'm going to keep doing it. Like, I don't know. I'm rearranging some crystals on my desk for 10 minutes. It's fine. I obviously need to do this. Right. So, yeah, I think one of the things that gets in the way of adults experiencing free play or kind of embracing it when we might kind of accidentally find ourselves doing it when we tinker or rearrange a shelf is the need to be efficient and what we consider productive. So I spent a lot of time in the book trying to explain the importance of play. Like there's a lot of why play matters and why free play matters.
Yeah.
And in order to help adults justify the urge to play and let themselves play, I think we all know how. I think we've been taught to not play. Like any muscle, it atrophies, but it's absolutely still there. We all know how to play. It's what makes us human. It's how we become who we are as children. So the play is still in us.
I totally see the lack of permission that we give ourselves. But do you think that we also mislabel play as procrastination and maybe like pile some shame and guilt on it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah, because we don't think it's productive.
Right.
Right. But I mean, and everybody has a different relationship to their work and their work process and procrastination. But I mean, writing, for example, I am a designer who writes. I guess now I'm also an author, but writing is not a process that comes naturally to me. So I talked to a lot of writers throughout the last 6 years of writing this book, and all of them, they have to clean the kitchen, rearrange the living room, go rake the leaves, and then journal for, 4 pages. And then they can eke out a paragraph in whatever piece that they're working on, right? And what was brilliant about hearing that from them is that they were saying, like, that's part of the process. If you have to allow 5 hours to dawdle around doing other stuff in order to warm up and get into the space to sit down and write, then that's part of the process, right?
That is helpful to frame it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me in my studio, it looks a little bit more like play. Like I kind of have to clean up first and arrange a little bit. And then as soon as I kind of dive into anything that involves a decision, I'll get right back up and go and need to start prototyping it again, So maybe it's procrastination, but I think it's just part of the process for me. Like I need to play, whether it's related to the thing I'm working on or not. I'm going to have to play a little bit in order to get into a space where I can work.
I think that's a really helpful note for everyone who probably does get a little bit hard on themselves when they're not just getting right to it, like in an efficient, productive manner. Because productivity has been drilled into us so hard that we don't know how to accept all the other ways of being as also being productive.
Right.
So you talk a lot in the book about the why, that play is so important. And so I want to get into that why. So talk to me about the science of play. I know that there are links to well-being, innovation, connection, and adaptability.
Yeah. I worked with a collaborator, Lydia Dinworth, who is a science writer. And so we kind of went through whatever research that she could find in both neuroscience and psychology and human development. And I was quite familiar with the research about early childhood because of my work designing for children. And it's interesting how most of the research, of course, was specific to children, but the way the research was done really related to just humans in general, right? There's quite a bit about who we are as children it's still the case when we're adults, right? It's just that somehow it was applied to childhood and then we decided to disregard it after kindergarten, right? But it's all across the board, it shows just such huge benefits of play. There was a neuroscientist named Marion Diamond, and her research was really interesting. It was in the 1960s. And as a woman studying play, she actually kind of used other words rather than saying play. It was kind of enhanced activities. She did research with rats and gave them kind of some enhanced activities, which was play, and then had other groups of rats that did not have that. And the difference in the brains of the rats who had the enhanced activities, who had playful lives and also companionship. They were smarter, they were more successful, they were healthier, they lived longer, and then the makeup of their brains just showed that they had developed really differently because they had done it with play.
Fascinating.
One psychologist that I am a big fan of is D.W. Winnicott, and his research was related directly to play and creativity. And he, of course, explored the why and researched the why it's important. But in the process of that, there's some really interesting insights about the how that mostly related to children in his work, but I think relate a lot to adults. And as an industrial design professor at RISD, I put these to practice to some extent, and they related to creating a safe space, the need to feel safe before you can play.
Yes.
And the importance of risk also, that in risk we grow, right? So both the need to know that you're safe, either in your friend group or in your classroom or in your own confidence. And when you feel that foundation is safe, you can kind of step out of it into something new or unknown, which would be considered a risk, right? You take a risk with something new or unknown, or maybe I'm going to be bad at this. But I feel kind of confident in myself, so it's okay if I'm bad at something for a second, right? Yeah. And then try something new and push and grow, and then come back to the thing that's safe and know that it's there for you. And in doing this, and I think we can set this up for our studios, if you're a creative director or if you're a professor or just our friends even. I think about this even for myself, because it is important occasionally to kind of acknowledge that you're going to do something risky or new in order to almost have buy-in in the releasing judgment. So,
okay.
Part of why it's hard for us to play as adults is because we fear judgment.
Yes.
Of ourselves and of each other. So if we're going to kind of step into something new and we kind of check in with each other, then we've given each other permission, and then can kind of release the judgment as we step into something that might be kind of risky and new.
Okay, so a lot of what you talk about then is, in terms of play in the workplace, is how to create those conditions so that people can feel safe enough to take these risks, to ultimately achieve the benefits of play in the workplace, because you're premise is that play is actually really productive and powerful for the workplace because it leads to adaptability, creativity, innovation, connection, and all of that.
Yeah.
Can you give me some examples of people who have started to value the benefit of play and have worked it into their corporate program?
So there's a few different ways that I think it can be really helpful for companies or organizations or even any group, really. And in one, it's kind of how can our process become more playful, maybe in the interest of leading to unexpected outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, in my mind, where open-endedness comes in.
Yeah.
That if you're playful, right, and in being playful, you've kind of embraced possibilities, which is the curiosity. You've released judgment of yourself and others and whatever the outcome might be, right? And then kind of reframed success, right? Or clarified, what does success look like? Like, are we looking to get more patents? Are we looking to bond and have fun? Are we looking to relax and recharge, right? So there's a bunch of different ways that they can come in, but the play as a process, I think, has really been kind of powerful across the board because there are very few, regardless of, you could be an accounting firm and still like integrate playfulness into your process, right? Like, of course, we may not want to get too creative with the numbers, but the process of doing it can still be playful, right? And then, of course, like if it's a company that is creative and they're trying to generate new ideas, like it's absolutely the way, because if you're moving toward a specific outcome and you're overly preoccupied with kind of getting there in the way that's acceptable or known, you won't get anywhere new, right?
Right.
And of course, that's not always easy. Like it has to be top down. Like the leader has to kind of embody that, like, you really won't get laughed out of the room, right? Like there has to be space for like, this is going to be an hour of terrible ideas. Let's go, right? Like there has to be a practice of embracing unknowns. And that's part of letting go of the fear of failure, which is something that keeps people from having the weird ideas or the really bold what ifs, following those, right?
This sounds a lot like yes and, like the rules of improvisation apply here.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely do. I think improv is such a beautiful form of play.
Yeah.
Kind of language play, it's like interpersonal play, it's kind of imaginative play and pretend, of course, because typically you're on stage pretending.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of ways that I've worked with groups when they're kind of trying to integrate play. And a third way is, when they do want the outcome to be play, which is interesting, when someone is designing for play. And then also just kind of learning from the play that's happening in a new process within an organization. So yeah, it's interesting. And I have some ongoing relationships that I've gotten to kind of see, in some cases, the product outcomes of. And in other cases, I've seen the hierarchy within a team really flatten, which in my mind is a huge success. I mean, I know that often organizations need a hierarchy because of structure and approvals and things like that. But often the hierarchies are what keep people from feeling safe enough to play, right?
Yes.
So play as a process is a way of also flattening hierarchy so that everybody is a little more comfortable having the ideas that might lead to something really new.
It sounds like not just comfortable having the ideas, but also comfortable accepting the ideas from somebody who in a hierarchy might be subordinate to you.
Yeah.
And you might feel like, oh, my position is threatened if the good idea came from below me.
Yeah.
But when it's flattened, it's like, no, we're all in this together. Good ideas are good ideas. Let's put some energy behind them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's also a way where the ideas aren't owned by any one person.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, I talk about play testing. And of course, I play test my learning materials and playgrounds and toys and things. But I also play test ideas like we'll play test eating dinner outside.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's play test sleeping in the car instead of the tent because we got wet camping, whatever it is. And by framing it as play testing, everyone is kind of buying into we're all going to give it our best, try it together. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. We'll talk about it afterward, what worked and didn't work, right? Because it was a play test. But like just going in with that frame kind of makes everybody invested in at least trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Rather than it being kind of one person's idea who says like, hey, let's try this. And then what I find with a lot of teams is that person is then responsible for it working or not. And there's always somebody who doesn't want it to work, whether or not they mean to be doing that.
Yeah.
They like their idea better or whatnot. But I think it's really important that ideas, like they belong to everybody. As soon as the idea is out, it's everybody's idea. So everybody is kind of crafting it and shaping it, and it has a life of its own.
And that is very clear in, Rigamajig, in terms of in the interdependence of people building something together. It is no single idea that's being executed to a recipe. It's like this is coming together with all of our input.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about with improvisation, the outcome of improvisation is also this whole that's greater than the sum of its parts that no single person owns, but only works with interdependence. And
exactly.
So by playtesting, you're saying we can all get to that place where we sort of disown or separate an idea or a concept from single person ownership and therefore single person responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But everyone still feels invested.
Exactly. I mean, hopefully.
Right.
We try. There's something also about in play testing or in framing it as that again, the kind of reflection phase, right? Where afterward you kind of sit back and say, okay, how did that go? What worked and didn't work? How would we do it differently? So there's also this assumption that nothing's ever really done or complete or right. If there's not a specific outcome that you're shooting for, then everything gets to kind of like adapt and evolve and change as it needs to. And everybody gets to kind of continuously participate in what it looks like as it changes and shifts. So I think that's another element of playtesting that's really powerful, is that it becomes its own adventure, really.
So I know this new book, Playful, is directed for us to reconsider as adults the power of play. And some of your really iconic work that you've done so far, Rigamajig and Geemo, and some of the installations that you've built, like Wobbly World, have been geared towards children. Mm-hmm. And this idea of play being good for us and play ultimately underscoring creative agency and productivity and being a powerful component of those is universal and hardwired, but we condition it out as we grow. Mm-hmm. Like we teach ourselves to not be playful. Mm-hmm. How do we get it back?
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned 3 elements earlier that relate quite a bit, and they are embrace possibility, release judgment, and reframe success. And those are kind of 3 things that we can remind ourselves or think about or notice when we're trying to either prioritize play or let ourselves play, or I call it a play voice. I think we have a play voice. Like there's this instinct that says like, oh, hey, go throw that ball over or hey, go and roll down that hill over there, right? So there's the play voice that's like,
I want to press all the buttons.
Right. Yeah. Put always the hazard.
If it says alarm will sound, I'm like, oh, I want to pull that so bad.
Tie your friend's shoe to the chair, right? The play voice that does that. And then you have the adult voice that says like, no, you'll look silly, or you can't do that. Your shirt will get dirty, or like you can't lay on the park bench in the sun, even though it's beautiful and perfect. And you want to look up at the leaves and daydream for a minute, And the adult voice is trying to protect us, right? Like it doesn't want you to be scorned. It's very aware of the judgment. Mm. So when your play voice is like, hey, what if you go try that? Skip some rocks, or like follow that bird, talk to the squirrel, whatever it is. So thinking about embracing possibility, releasing judgment, and reframing success will like kind of help you get there. So embracing possibility is curiosity, really. Like be open to what might come up. Right. So the example of maybe you're on a hike and you have to cross a river, but in the process of rearranging the rocks, you realize that, like I was describing the kerplunk versus the splash, right? So the possibility of what might come up and then letting that be the thing, like being present or attentive enough to say, like, actually, this is really interesting. I'm going to spend 5 minutes as long as I feel like doing this thing instead. And then the release judgment is kind of fairly obvious. Like, release the judgment of yourself, right? Like, it is worth your time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge yourself for not being productive. And trust that the people around you aren't going to judge you. And or if they do, that's their problem, not yours,
Yeah.
Like, that's about them. And remember to not judge each other, of course, when we act silly or behave in a way that might be considered childish, right? This is also a thing, like, all through school, we kind of are learning to not play.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hold still, stay inside, don't speak out of turn, passing notes, like all of the ways that we are trying to like still play in school are really shut down. And of course, like the social contract is so strong in puberty that like all we want is to be accepted. And we're told that in order to be accepted, you have to behave in this way that is more like an adult than a child, and children play and adults don't, therefore no more play, right?
Yeah. That's tragic.
It's hard. Yeah.
What a major disservice we're doing to our evolution.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I hear from people, mostly since Abstract on Netflix, it's a docuseries, and there's an episode about me, and people have reached out and are just so deeply moved because they either didn't realize or they want to share their story about how they were shut down when they played and like how much they miss it. Or it's really, I mean, the stories are heartbreaking at times. But the third element of, to your question, how, right?
Thank you for bringing it back.
Yeah. Reframing success is like one of my favorites because I think we often assume that we're meant to be doing something specific, like the hike, for example. And in a hike, you get to the top and you say, yay, we got there, take a picture, do whatever, and then, come back. But if along the way something else comes up, right, and you're frustrated because your friend or your 10-year-old hiking companion or your play voice is like, let's go poke that moss, or like, oh, why is that log over there? And, what happens if we move it like this? And we'll often kind of be like, no, that's not what we're doing. We got to get to the top. And it's like, well, okay, wait, hold on. What is our goal? Is our goal to get to the top of this mountain and like not talk to each other in the process? Or is our goal to hang out and have quality time out in nature? So does it matter if we're like moving forward on this path? Like, why can't we just sit here and play with the moss? Right?
Right. You don't have to adhere to the outcome that you started with.
Yeah.
If it's not really if it's not really the goal. If the ultimate goal is to be together, have quality time.
Right. And similarly, when you brought up being productive and procrastinating, right? So you could ask yourself, so if you were like rearranging a bookshelf or doing the dishes or something as procrastination, you could ask yourself, okay, wait, what is the goal of today? Like, is my goal that I, make myself miserable and send these emails in the next 20 minutes? Or is my goal to like have a day where I feel all right and can be present and like communicate in a way that feels good? So maybe I need to let myself do this for a while and then I can kind of get back to things.
As you're saying all of this, I wonder where escapism fits in. Is escapism sometimes a form of play? I mean, I know it depends on how you're defining success. I mean, specifically, it comes from me. I love to get immersed in stories. So, like,
Oh, that's absolutely play.
Will listen to an audiobook and stay in the story maybe for longer than I think I should because...
Yeah, but what's the should? I mean...
Right. That's the should that gets in the way.
Yeah. If you're lingering there, then you probably are getting something from it,
Yeah.
The term escapism has like different connotations, I think. And I think I've heard people use it in relationship to when we kind of disengage from the world by kind of going into a rabbit hole on social media or something.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That is kind of a loaded term that everybody's going to come to it with a different different association.
No, I think daydreaming is it's interesting. And I mentioned play workers, and I'm a big fan of play workers and play work in general. And I have borrowed from them play types that for the last 20-something years, I've been using this list of play types like imaginative play, rough and tumble play, fantasy play, pretend play, right? These different kind of play types to both observe play and talk about children's play, and also in designing for play, like, my students and I will kind of assign different things or switch around to kind of figure out, like, what are we designing for exactly? And we'll talk about play types in that way. And I had always just applied them broadly. And as I wrote the book, I realized that they didn't relate to adults in the same way. So one of them is when I was talking about risk.
Mm-hmm.
What's risky for a child is jumping off of a ladder or going to the other side of the park from their caregiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like a risk. Whereas with an adult, just playing is risky, right?
Right.
So I realized that the play types for adults were really different than the play types for children. So I kind of, in the book, I proposed some adult play types based a bit on how we play, but also based on just developmentally, of course, we're different than children. So our play will be different.
So what are the adult play types?
There are a few. And one of them you just mentioned, I think, in talking about escapism, which is attention play.
Oh.
So bird watching is attention play. I take the subway a lot, and I actually don't look at my phone. I people watch, so I just kind of sit there and make eye contact whenever possible with anybody else who's not looking at their phone. Sometimes I get to chat with strangers, but mostly I just kind of like imagine what people are coming from and going to and what's going on and whether or not those two people are on their first date or their fifth date,
Yeah.
So that's attention play.
Okay.
There's meditative play, which is, I think, largely a lot of our like puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
There is possibility play. So that's the kind of like what if problem solving play, which is tinkering and getting in something to figure it out. Competitive play, of course, like that one, people are pretty, I think most adults are pretty in touch with their competitive play. Embodied play runs the gamut of a number of different things. And then it's interesting, in some of the conversations I've been having recently, we've been talking about misbehavior play. So behavior play being its own kind of play. Maybe that's like when we, get dressed up in an outfit and go out, or maybe we do drag, or maybe we act out and when we drink a bunch at a club or something. But in the conversations I've been having recently, I am kind of starting to think that most adult play is misbehavior play, because the social construct is don't play.
Mm-hmm.
Any play is kind of misbehaving.
Yes.
So yeah, the behavior or the misbehavior play is interesting, and in the book I give little examples of all of these. And I know that people are going to argue with me because, of course, like there's going to be a lot that I didn't think of, or people saying, no, that should be this play. And I can't wait. I think that's when it gets good, because I'm like, what do I know? Here's what I think,
Yeah. Well, and when it stimulates that kind of feedback, that's your gravy. Like you get to sort through that, and that's all just, you get to add it to your observations and your data collection and your research.
Absolutely.
So what does it actually look like to bring play into a daily workflow, let's say in a workplace setting or in a team setting that might be where play could easily get cringy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a potential to play wash.
Yeah.
In the late 90s, I worked for a contract furniture company. We did a lot of high-end corporate offices in San Francisco, kind of during the first .com boom. Mm-hmm. One of the projects that I worked on had a slide in the middle of it. At the time, I was like, it's so cool. These people are awesome, And it was a kind of creative-related tech company. And I went back like 4 months later to do something else with them, and the slide had dust.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's going to take more than a slide. I think that the biggest shift is got to be in releasing judgment. Before we can even respect or prioritize play, I think that letting ourselves play and letting each other play and knowing that we won't be judged or fired for being playful. So that's I think, the first step.
Okay.
And I mean, it's interesting now because with remote work, what work looks like is different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the bummer for play in that regard is that when we do interface with each other, it's very functional.
Yeah.
We have a meeting until the decisions are made and then we get off as soon as possible. And so we kind of have missed out on those moments where we kind of linger or get a little bit bored so that then we kind of like need to do something that makes us feel better, right? I think boredom is usually a step before you find something to do.
Right. Boredom is like the palate cleanser you need to like go from function or productivity or decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You almost need that bubble of nothing.
Yeah, I love the idea of palate cleanser. Yeah, and we don't really let ourselves do that, right? That the habit is so strong to check our email or go on the thing or read the news or do whatever.
Yeah.
And it really takes a beat to kind of reset and then say like, and that's when, again, back to like attention play, just looking around and like realizing like, oh, the world that I'm actually in is pretty rich. There's a lot here and it feels really good to tune into it rather than kind of tuning out of it by, looking at our digital worlds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that play can also help us be more present in all of the spaces we are in a way that is very necessary.
So now that we are in this world where half or 3/4 of our meetings are on Zoom or we're interfacing with teams that may be distributed, let's say as a leader, how would you encourage a playful mindset? Aside from like releasing judgment, you almost have to model that by being playful yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe we can role play what that looks like a little bit. Like,
yeah,
maybe you're even a boss and you're wearing a suit, but how do you create a playful culture?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we were to role play and if I'm a boss, I think one of the first things would be to, even in a meeting of some kind, just shifting the environment. So go have the meeting somewhere else, right?
That's so simple.
Yeah, go in a different room.
Yeah.
Or say like, okay, we're all going to take notes and then pass it to the right every 5 minutes. Just like little things that, again, just shifting the space is going to make everybody feel a little different, which is in and of itself going to make them more likely to be more willing to...
Yeah, open up to a less prescriptive meeting format.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just changing habits. So is just saying, okay, I usually run the meeting, but I'm going to have this person run the meeting, or we're going to do it backwards instead. Like, let's start with this and end with that. Just like shake it up a little bit. And even in the process of that, you'll kind of wind up having to reframe success. Like you'll have to be clear about like, wait, what is our goal of this?
Yeah.
Are we actually having these meetings because we need them, or do we actually just need to be in the same room and remember that we're humans and we like each other, right? Because that's actually the point of some meetings.
Yes, that is actually the point. But also in this age of distributed and remote work, so many of the things you just said can be done via remote. Like you can suggest that everybody Zoom in from a different location, or you can suggest that we can do the meeting backwards, even if you're on Zoom. And so it's actually way more simple and practical than you might think.
Yeah. Another thing that I might do if I were a boss who wanted to make things playful, and slapstick was not my magic, I might, and this is something actually that I borrow from critique, the idea of generative language, right? And so making a rule in the meeting, okay, everything has to start with what if this, or what would happen if blank, right? So everything is about possibility, right? And that's going to be playful because people are going to start to kind of imagine different things. There will be more kind of spitballing and building on ideas. So just kind of setting some constraints, and maybe they're even arbitrary, like, okay, nobody can say the word blank
Yeah.
If you're trying to like move away from some idea and you're like, why are we stuck? Okay, don't use this anymore. If we can't use that word, then maybe we'll avoid that concept and maybe we'll get to a different place, right? Or maybe in the meantime, we'll just have to pay more attention, right?
Yeah.
So there's just different ways that I think even like setting up some constraints can be really playful. Language is extremely playful. I love playing with language because it really does change an idea and it changes the way you think about something when you kind of shift words around.
Shift words around, shift emphasis, use words that have multiple meanings and rearrange them. Yeah, I love wordplay too.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of this science and research and these ideas that you've generated. I hope you're okay if we turn the lens on you personally. I'd love to talk about Cas Holman and your creative path and process.
Sure.
How you got to be who you are. I'm sure you have some formative play experiences from your youth and from your adolescence and all throughout your life that have informed you.
Yeah. My childhood was very rich in play, in part because I was raised we kind of lived in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
The TV was broken fairly often, so that wasn't an option. I had a single mom who worked a lot, so I was home alone a lot, and it was great.
Yeah, left to your own devices.
Yeah, I just, had to make it up all the time. And for a while, my stepdad was a mechanic. And so there were always like parts and pieces around, and I got to help him fix cars and build dune buggies. He built a few dune buggies.
Oh, cool.
And he was very playful, so we spent a lot of time together building things, and I don't know how much I was actually helping, but I was part of the process.
Well, that was, but being exposed to it and being able to participate without judgment, that must have been really formative.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So yeah, I had a very rich play life as a kid. And then I also really early on, I think, could tell that I was different in that being queer, my gender was a little off, according to many. And thankfully, I just did not care.
that is a gift.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for it because it's not easy. And I see kids who, of course, they care. Like we're hardwired to care. That's the social acceptance contract, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tricky path. And what that means is, as I became an adult, there was this learning not to play culture happening in adolescence. I already kind of knew that I didn't need to follow the rules.
Yeah.
I had like kind of a shortcut to deciding which of the social contract rules applied and didn't, or which I was going to listen to or not, or kind of use when it was useful and disregard the rest of the time. So I kept playing. Like I kind of never stopped playing. And then also playing with identity. And I was 28, I think, when I first realized I wanted to be a designer. And up until then, I was a research assistant in the Galapagos Islands. I was a chef. I worked for this furniture company. I had all kinds of jobs.
Oh, fun, though. Fun to stock your quiver with all those arrows.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, all of them relate to what I do now in different ways. And I just kind of adventured my way toward design and then realized like, oh, that is kind of everything. And also people, right? I like people. And then I went to Cranbrook. So I went back to school to get my MFA at Cranbrook. And one of the first projects that I did wound up being Geemo, a building toy. And then in kind of looking at the toy industry and at toys in general, I was like, oh, but this could really use some good design work. And then I kind of realized, oh, it's not actually about the object. It's about the behavior and the experience, which is play. And so then kind of opening it up and kind of feeling like I was maybe outcome agnostic, right? Like I didn't want it to always be a toy, or like medium agnostic maybe, or so, designing for play sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a curriculum, and I get to work with people who who come to me and say, for example, impulse control. There's children are having something about devices is making kids have issues with impulse control. And of course, conflict resolution, like kids are really struggling with conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And so I work with people who say, Cass, like, how can we design for conflict resolution, right? So I'm like, all right, so let me design a way that kids can practice this, right?
Yeah.
And it might be like some kind of game that's not an object. It's like designing a curriculum or an activity or something that's a little more ephemeral.
That makes sense because you're empathizing with the player and designing the system of actions that they might go through that would address the impulse control or remediate whatever is harming the impulse control.
Yeah. It's creating the conditions for X to arise, right? So,
yes.
And in the book, what I try to do is help adults create the conditions for free play to arise in their own lives, to kind of be their own play worker. So how can an adult create the conditions to have more play in their lives and at best have free play in their lives because the benefits of it are so rich?
Yes. Okay. Recap the benefits that are so rich.
Well, it makes us human. It's like part of who we are. It's how we grow. It's how we connect with others, but also with ourselves. I think that in particular, free play, because it lets us be in touch with, again, our intrinsic motivation, then we remember what we really want, right? Like I was up in a tree recently.
Oh, I love this story.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Because I was pruning and I was too lazy to go get a ladder. But I was like, I can still climb. I'm 51. So, I can do it, but I don't know if I should. Right. But also I loved it. But while I was up there, I kind of just was like, I'm going to hang out. Right. And there was the bark and then some lichen. And I think I was up there for probably 20 minutes before I even realized that I'd just been picking at this one branch that I had intended to cut off. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just kind of needed to, I was kind of daydreaming.
Yeah.
It was attention play, right? I was just picking at the light and the lichen was beautiful, and apparently that was what I needed. But in the process of doing that, like, that is a thing I did so much as a child. It wasn't like I intentionally said, I need to reconnect with myself and who I am. I'm going to go do this activity that, I just kind of like found myself up there. And then because I wasn't hell-bent on being efficient or productive, I let myself kind of linger and then hang out for a while. And I really felt like I just had a moment with myself. And it was really nice. Like it was a weird kind of reflecting on my life moment while playing with some lichen on the branch of a tree. This is maybe a story I'm going to regret telling, but
no, I love it because it also just speaks to, okay, if I'm going to not listen to the voice that wants me to be productive or efficient right now, that means there's space for other reflections to come in.
Yeah. And it reminds you that, like, again, I think it happens during school, right? We learn what we're good at, and then we do that to affirm ourselves. It's hard to do something new because you are bad at it, and then you feel like you're bad at a thing. And we're not supposed to be bad at things. We're supposed to do the things we're good at, right? And as adults, I think we do less and less of what we're bad at least not voluntarily. And so part of, I think, why, again, it's hard for us to play is that we fear failure, right?
Yeah.
So when we kind of have a moment to step out of that entirely, we can connect with ourselves as it is utterly unrelated to being productive or successful or good at the thing. Like, it's just us. You're just there with yourself. And I know that could be terrifying for some people, but like it can also be really wonderful.
And it's probably, even if it is terrifying, that probably means it's necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like the big gestures of running and rolling and leaping, like that's play. And also like sitting in a tree is play. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of answers a question I had, which is, how do you protect your own playfulness against the pressures of life? And that whole story is kind of an example of that, by just giving yourself permission to get lost in poking at a tree branch.
Yeah, it's hard. I also have a workload that's like maybe too ambitious at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell. I mean, my play is quite stubborn, and my play voice is like, we're just not. Like I just am, my legs will take me there. Like I just get up and leave, right? So, and like I said, that I think that talking to writers who said, I need an 8-hour day, and I'm going to be sitting at a computer for 20 minutes of that, right? 7 hours and 40 minutes of my writing day are doing these other things that make it possible for me to sit down for 20 minutes. I like that as an approach. Call it, you could call it play, or you could call it the preparatory actions, or maybe that's them creating the conditions for the writing.
Right. And it does sound like a simple trick we could all do is just pad the time that we give any task to allow for those preparatory actions or play, or even for a little daydream in the middle of it. You don't have to schedule the daydream, but you can just know that if you find yourself daydreaming,
mm-hmm.
you've allowed time for it. So you don't have to let the clock berate you.
Yeah. And I think the biggest preparatory action for most adults that I know is like, do you need to look at your phone right now? Like,
yes.
Maybe just don't. Like, give it a beat. If you're at the bus stop or waiting for your food to come, what if you just didn't and see what happens? I think that's that's the biggest preparatory action that adults could do right now.
That's a great one. All right, I'm gonna do that. I'm already pretty good at not looking at my phone all the time, but I could be better.
Yeah,
I could be better.
I mean, humans are also kind of cool, and we're around.
Humans are amazing. I mean, I think this whole podcast is my attention play.
Yeah, nice. Well, and conversation play, right? Because that's you're like, what if this? But what about this? Yeah.
But I did just sit down one day and I was like, what do I really want to spend my time doing? And it was like, I want to seek out the most fascinating people and have a really great conversation with them. And then, so that's what I do now.
Amazing. Yay.
I'm like,
yeah, here's to that your work is play. I mean, and then that's its own interesting path, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that I can actually play when I'm in my own spaces. In the things I design, like I can play with almost anything, but it's hard for me to play with the things that I design in a way that's actually play. Like I'm really like assessing.
Yeah, you're assessing.
Like, that did, well, when I shouldn't have changed that 2 millimeters really made a difference on that nut and bolt, or like, oh, wait, how did that change? You're like, oh, that's not, so.
I also design and build furniture, or I used
Mm-hmm.
to, and I think I really obsessed, not that you're obsessive, but the assessing was obsessive for me. And like this, I think I had this pathological perfectionism that actually kind of traumatized the whole process for me. And
did you stop?
I teach furniture design, so I'm still very passionate about furniture and its role in the world and helping people discover their creative agency around it.
Nice.
But it's been a long time since I've actually put boards together to make a piece of furniture.
Yeah, what if you framed it as like, just go play with some wood and see what happens? Don't build a chair. Just go play with some wood. Maybe you'll sit on it afterward. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, what about your life or your work do you wish that people would ask you about to create a full spectrum picture of your humanity?
Oh, wow. Right now, my primary form of play is working on this property that I am trying to move my studio into, but it's not on the grid. So we had running water for a day and then it's not anymore. And then we had, the power now does seem consistent. I have a solar setup but I have a pond and this beautiful, really old, very neglected apple orchard.
Oh, wow.
I have this land. I'm a steward of some land.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get some buildings habitable so I can be there more and my studio will be there. And I love it. And that is my play. Like when I'm there and the birds and all of the animals. And there's an eagle that's nested near the pond and that I get to watch. And yeah, I could talk about that forever. We call it People's Pond.
Oh yeah, why? Where's the name come from?
Because it takes a village. It could definitely, and so I've had a few friends' birthday parties there, and we camped. So it's kind of summer camp for adults.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's a collaborative effort. I mean, everybody already has drawers, so they come and go whenever they want to. And the property is kind of oriented around this one really big pond. And it came with a bunch of really weird old boats. So we have all these boats out on the pond. It's wonderful.
Wow.
And People's Pond I'm from Northern California, and People's Park in Berkeley, of course, was a big, beautiful spot.
Yes. Okay. I got it.
This one's on the East Coast, pond version of the park.
And that sounds like crucial ingredients to this like full and playful adult life that you're creating for yourself.
Yeah.
And it has been really fun to talk to you because I can tell how deeply rigorous you are about play, but how your money is where your mouth is too. Like the play comes from a place that is not only intuitive, but it's something that you're practicing every day.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, both to help children grow up to be fully, have full agency over their own creativity and adaptability and identity, but to also remind adults how much better life can be if we remember to play.
Yeah.
It's really important work that you're doing. And so, thank you for your contribution.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for this conversation and the wonderful questions. That was really fun.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode and more about Cas, including links and images, head to our website, cleverpodcast.com. While you're there, sign up for our free Substack newsletter, which includes news, announcements, and a bonus Q&A from our guests. We love to hear from you on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can find us at Clever Podcast, and you can find me at Amy Devers. And if you listen on Spotify, you can comment right there in the app. We love to hear what you think. If you like Clever, there are a number of ways you can support us. Share Clever with your friends, leave us a 5-star rating or a kind review, support our sponsors, and hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app so that our new episodes will turn up in your feed. Clever is hosted and produced by me, Amy Devers, with editing by Mark Zarowinski, production assistance from Ilana Nevins and Anushka Stefan, and music by L1011.
I don't know. I'm rearranging some crystals on my desk for 10 minutes. It's fine. I obviously need to do this.